Today we are going to be doing steering knuckles on a 2018 Ford F-150. We're removing a 6-inch lift from this vehicle, front and rear. We're also replacing the struts, the upper control arms, the leaf springs in the rear. Quite a bit of work, but we're going to focus in on the steering knuckles for this video. I still have the tie rod attached because before we were only going to be doing the struts and we added quite a bit of extra labor. So, if you're going to do this at home, I recommend to take off the upper ball joint first, then the lower ball joint. That way you have access. Take off your axle nut and pop your axle through with the lower ball joint when you pop that out of socket. And then it'll pretty much just be hanging on your tie rod. I would recommend taking your tie rod off before it's hanging, unless you want to have some extra support to hold that arm up. But yeah, as you can see, I'm spraying a little water on the boots and the plastics before I use heat, just so that I can see where my heat is going. And yeah, water's great for that because it'll dry up really quick if you have too much heat going there, or it'll protect you from fire on it. Yeah, there's the steering knuckle. In this case, we opted to replace the wheel bearings and the vacuum actuators. If you were not going to replace them, I would recommend to remove them from the steering knuckle while it's still on the car. That way you don't have to fight with the steering knuckle moving all around. It's held nice and firmly. But if you are replacing them, I'd recommend putting your vacuum actuators on first. That way when you put your steering knuckle on, you don't have to fight with it. You can just put your axle directly through, and you can put your wheel bearing or your wheel hub on last. So yeah, as you can see, I already have the strut in there because we had decided to do upper control arms after the fact, and the bolts run inward, so you have to take the strut out to do the upper control arm. If you were doing this job, I'd recommend to replace your upper control arm before you replace the strut. Just makes sense in like consecutive order wise, not having to take parts off. In this case, I'm just going to take the 3 nuts off the top, lower my lower control arm down enough for that to clear so that I can get the upper control arm out and replace it. As you can see, I've lifted the lower control arm and strut back up. I'm tightening the 3 nuts on top for the top plate to hold the strut and the suspension nice and tight. Then you're going to see me put the try to put the steering knuckle back on. However, I am going to find out that the parts company that we ordered the steering knuckle from did not put threaded holes for the ABS wire or the brake mount. So, unfortunately, I had to tap, I think, 6 holes in each control arm, put threads in them so that I could bolt the proper mounts up where they go. But that's just something that I wanted to do to make sure that I'm putting things back exactly where they're supposed to go and how the manufacturers designed it. But yeah, you can see I'm tightening everything up here. Again, I want to reiterate, if you are doing this, try to do the upper control arm before you replace the strut. Then put your strut in. Then you're going to put your vacuum actuator on the back of the control arm, or on the back of your steering knuckle, sorry. Be careful with the vacuum actuators. They are very, very sensitive on the inside. You want to make sure that that all stays as one unit. Bolt that up, put your axle through the back, making sure to not nick any of the rubber, not nick any of the inside grease. And put your axle through. Put your upper control arm on your steering knuckle, your lower control arm on your steering knuckle. I would recommend you bolt your upper control arm up first, because if you bolt your upper control arm up first, it will actually pull the lower control arm up for you, and then you won't have to fight with that ball and socket spinning at all, because it will be pulled nice and tight for you. Then after that, you're going to throw your wheel hub on the front of the steering knuckle and on the front of the axle. Put your axle nut on. Those, I think, torque to right between 18 to 22 foot-pounds, so make sure you're torquing those and make sure that you are getting them to spec. But yeah, that's pretty much what you got. You're going to throw your tie rod on after that, then you're going to throw your brakes on. Make sure that everything spins nice and easy. In this case, I also took the sway bar link off to get a little bit of extra movement from the lower control arm. So my final step on this one is going to be to pull the sway bar back down, connect it to my sway bar links, and send this customer on their merry way. Because yeah, it's going to be a well repaired. It's nice and done. Got the leaf springs in the back done. Got it lowered 6 inches for them so they could get back to stock ride height, and stock tires to get some better gas mileage and get a nicer ride. Yeah, here we go. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. You can see here I'm tapping those holes that I was talking about for the mounts. Unfortunately, they didn't come from the part store tapped, which is odd. I've never actually had that issue before, but we got a tap set and cutting oil. I was able to put some threads in there. Yeah, job well done, nice and easy. New steering knuckles, new wheel bearings, new vacuum actuator. Make sure that the 4x4 still works, and this customer is happy as can be. Make sure if you do the steering knuckles and you change any of the alignment stuff, like upper control arm, tie rod, lower control arm, that you also get the vehicle a good front end alignment. Obviously it's got a solid axle in the rear, so you don't have to worry about that, but it definitely needs a front end alignment also. Thanks for watching, and feel free to subscribe and like the channel.